It started like any other Tuesday in Millstone, a quiet, polished town where the air smelled like lattes and confidence. Inside Heritage Trust Bank, the floor gleamed with marble perfection. The lobby buzzed with the soft murmur of clients and the click-clack of expensive heels. Nothing ever happened here until the old man walked in. He didn't belong. His coat was tattered at the seams, elbows patched with duct tape. A scruffy white beard framed a weathered face, the kind of face life had clearly taken its time with. In his cracked hands, he clutched a dusty canvas bag that sagged with weight. People stared. Some wrinkled their noses. One woman instinctively pulled her purse closer. A security guard straightened. The man took 2 slow steps into the center of the grand lobby, and with a voice steadier than anyone expected, said, "Good afternoon. I'm here to reclaim what's mine. This bank belongs to me." The room fell still, like someone hit mute. Then came the first chuckle. A young teller near the front tried to stifle a laugh. "Excuse me, sir," she said, eyes darting to security. "Are you all right? Do you need help with something? I'm not here to deposit, and I'm not here to withdraw." The man stepped closer. "I built this place. It was mine before your name was even printed on that badge." More laughter. "Someone's off their meds," muttered a sharply dressed client, shaking his head. "Gramps, the retirement home's next door," another called out. "You took a wrong turn." The old man didn't flinch. He gently set his bag on the marble floor with a dull thump. Then, with effort, he knelt. The room went oddly quiet again as he opened the bag and pulled out a bundle wrapped in faded cloth. He unrolled it slowly. Out came something no one expected. A thick, time-worn ledger, its leather cover cracked and dusty, and a handful of old, yellowed bills bound with brittle string. "My name is Elias Monroe," he said. "And this," he patted the ledger, "is the founding record of Heritage Trust, signed by my hand in 1954. You could hear the breath catch in the throat of Daniel Hart, the bank's current manager, as he stepped out from his glass office, curiosity overcoming protocol. He was in his late 40s, impeccably dressed, with the air of someone who hadn't heard no in a very long time. He took the book cautiously, flipping through the pages as if afraid they might crumble. When he reached a page about halfway through, he froze. His lips moved silently, reading names out loud. "Elias Monroe." Daniel looked up, pale. "You're supposed to be dead." Elias cracked a smile. "Rumors can be persistent, especially the ones that serve someone else's agenda." Across the lobby, a long-retired client, Mrs. Delaney, a local fixture with a keen and sharp memory, rose slowly from a bench. "My word," she whispered. "That photo. You used to have it hanging right there." She pointed to the wall where a modern art print now hung. "Before they replaced it." A beat passed. Then she added, "I remember him. This man, he's not lying." Daniel Hart blinked hard, the ledger still trembling in his hands. The security guard Luis shifted uncomfortably and looked at Daniel, awaiting orders. But Daniel said nothing. Elias turned toward one of the lobby's grand pillars, running his hand across its base. "There used to be initials carved here," he said. "My initials, EM, covered now by paint, but they're still there. Check it yourself." Luis hesitated, then knelt. He scraped gently with a key, just enough to peel back a layer of beige paint. A breathless moment passed, and then, etched in stone, faint but unmistakable, 2 letters revealed themselves. EM. The mood shifted. No one laughed now. Daniel looked like he had seen a ghost. The once dismissed man with the dusty coat and the strange bag was no longer just a nuisance. He was something else, someone real, someone forgotten. Elias stood upright, slower this time. His eyes scanned the space as if searching for pieces of a life left behind. "I built this bank not for profits," he said quietly, "but for people, before greed replaced purpose." And just like that, the room, the day, the entire institution felt different. Because the past had just walked through the front door. Clay Vance stepped forward, his leather shoes clicking sharply across the marble floor. He moved like a man used to taking control of a room, but today, the room didn't move for him. His gaze darted from the pile of old bills on the counter to the ragged man standing near the center. His voice came cold and clipped. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Elias Monroe didn't blink. "I'm the man your grandfather betrayed." The words hung heavy. They didn't shout. They didn't need to. The weight of 4 decades carried them. Clay looked around at the silent staff, his jaw tightening. "This is absurd," he snapped. My grandfather founded this bank. Everyone knows that. You think walking in here with a dusty book and a few old bills proves something? Elias stepped forward, slower now, but with a steady presence that silenced even the marble echoes. I didn't come here to convince you. I came to tell the truth. Whether you accept it or not, that's on you. He turned to the others, but they deserved to hear it. Clay scoffed but said nothing. He didn't leave either. Elias drew a breath, long, heavy, and full of years. In 1983, I got on a boat headed for New Orleans. I'd received a letter from a nonprofit wanting to partner with us to build affordable housing along the Gulf Coast. It was everything I dreamed of, using the bank to serve real people. That night, a storm rolled in, harder than anything I'd ever seen. It tore the vessel apart. He paused, as if the memory knocked the air from his lungs again. I washed ashore 2 days later, bruised, coughing blood, delirious. Some shrimpers found me. I stayed in their shack for weeks, trying to recover. By the time I got to the hospital, I saw the newspapers. He reached into the bag one last time and pulled out an old clipping. Time-stained, wrinkled. Elias Monroe, bank co-founder, lost at sea, presumed dead. I thought it was a mistake, that someone had jumped the gun. But then I saw this. He held up another document. A legal notice stating that my ownership had been transferred, that my will had been executed. Clay's brows furrowed. Your will? A will I never wrote. He let that sink in before continuing. I returned to Millstone 2 weeks later. I walked into this very building like I did today, and I found your grandfather sitting behind my desk. I remember the way he looked at me. He didn't seem shocked, just disappointed. Daniel Hart, the manager, leaned forward. What did he say? Elias closed his eyes briefly, summoning the words. He said, Elias, what a shame. We already had your funeral. Your shares were passed to your heirs, and they sold them to me. He opened his eyes again, stealing them now. I didn't have any heirs, not then, not legally, and what will? It was forged, every page. Elisa gasped. He stole the bank? Elias nodded. He saw opportunity in my absence. The storm handed him a window, and he took it. Clay shook his head. That's not possible. My grandfather was a businessman? Elias finished. Yes, ruthless, clever, but he didn't start this place. I did. He joined me after I'd secured the land, the charter, and the initial capital. He was a good partner, until he wasn't. Clay's face hardened. Why didn't you fight him in court? Why disappear? Elias pulled from his coat a small manila folder and passed it to Daniel, who opened it slowly. Because every time I tried, they laughed me out of the room. My fingerprints didn't match the ones on the will. Of course they didn't. It wasn't mine. I had no ID left, no bank accounts, no records. It was like I'd never existed. Daniel stared at the documents. Handwriting analysis, sworn testimonies, photocopies of Elias's original signatures alongside forged ones, even a notarized letter from an archivist confirming his name on the original charter. I tried everything. Elias said, but you can't fight a ghost with a lawyer, and back then, no one wanted to listen to an old black man claiming to own a white man's bank. The room went still again. Mrs. Marjorie Powell wiped her eyes quietly. But I didn't give up. I just waited. Waited for a time when people might be willing to believe again. Then the cancer came. The doctor said I had 6 months. He paused. That was 4 months ago. Clay looked down now, unsure where to aim his indignation. You think I knew about this? He muttered. Elias tilted his head. I think you believed the story your grandfather told, just like everyone else. Clay stared at the marble floor. His world was tilting beneath him. Daniel stepped in, voice softer now. All these years, the records we filed, the history we told, the founder's name etched into stone outside, it was all built on a lie? No, Elias said. It was built on a dream, just not the one they let you remember. Louis, the security guard, stepped closer. Then why come back now? If you knew no one would believe you, why put yourself through this? Elias looked around at the place he had once called home. The high ceilings, the pillars he helped design, the sense of dignity he wanted every visitor to feel. Because I can't die with this lie untouched. I don't want revenge. I want peace. I want my name back. That's all. His voice softened. And maybe if people see that a truth buried for 40 years can still be uncovered, they'll believe their truths matter too. Silence again. Then Clay stepped forward. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. I'm calling legal, he said. We need to verify everything. He looked up at Elias. And if it checks out, every word, you'll get more than your name back. I promise you that. Elias studied the young man. For a moment, he didn't see Clay Vance, the heir to his betrayal. He saw a child born into a story someone else had written. He saw a man trying to walk out of another's shadow. Then Elias extended his hand. It trembled slightly. Clay hesitated, then took it. The handshake was quiet, but everyone in the room felt it. Something old had cracked open, and something new was starting to breathe. The handshake between Elias Monroe and Clay Vance wasn't loud. No thunder cracked, no orchestra played. But to everyone watching, it felt like a chapter closing, and another, long overdue, beginning. Clay took a step back, still gripping the envelope full of documents. His fingers trembled. You could tell he wasn't just holding paper, he was holding the weight of his family's legacy, and its lie. Elias said nothing more. He didn't need to. The room around him had changed. It started with Elisa. She walked back to the front desk, her eyes shimmering, and carefully lifted one of the old, yellowed bills Elias had brought. Holding it with both hands, she walked to the center of the lobby, the very heart of the bank, and placed the bill down on the granite counter. No words, just a quiet offering, a small act of acknowledgement that said, "We see you now." Then, Marjorie Powell, the longtime receptionist, stepped forward. She picked up another bill and laid it beside the first. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "I remember the day I first met you, 1978. I was scared. Everyone talked down to me like I didn't belong, except you. You asked my name. You looked me in the eye. You told me I mattered. That stayed with me all these years, even when they took your name off the wall." Tears slid down her cheeks, unashamed. "I'm sorry they buried your legacy. I should have said something." Elias gave her a gentle nod, his eyes misting over. One by one, others began to move. Thomas Kent, the client whose father once ran a farm saved by Elias's loan in 1978, stepped forward. He placed a third bill on the counter and turned to face Elias. "My dad used to say there was a man at the bank who didn't just look at numbers. He looked at people. He said that man helped us keep our land when the drought nearly broke us. That man was you." Then came the tellers. The junior loan officer. Even Luis, the security guard who had nearly escorted Elias out hours earlier. "I was just doing my job," he said, voice low, "but sometimes the job ain't right." He placed a folded $5 bill from his own wallet onto the pile. "Maybe this doesn't mean much, but it's yours." What began as an act of symbolic restitution became a quiet wave. The countertop, once polished and cold, now held dozens of bills, old and new, gently stacked like relics of memory. Clay watched, stunned. His family had controlled this bank for decades, but in that moment it was clear. The people remembered Elias more than they ever remembered Edgar. Daniel Hart, the branch manager, stepped forward. "You told me earlier you built this place for people, not profit," he said. "I didn't believe you then." He looked around. "I do now." He took the ledger from his office, the bank's official book of founding records, where every regional executive had signed their name since 1984, and placed it on the counter next to the bills. Then, slowly, he opened it to the first page and rewrote the founder's name. Elias Monroe, founder. Everyone saw it. Everyone felt it. A line of truth written into the institution that had erased him. There was no applause, no speech, just the hushed reverence of a moment too sacred for noise. Then Elias spoke. "I didn't come here looking for pity or power. I came here to finish something I started, not a building, a vision." His voice deepened, and though aged, it rang with the clarity of conviction. "We built this bank to help people. Not just the wealthy, not just the connected. Everyone. When they replaced that vision with greed, they didn't just betray me. They betrayed every farmer, every waitress, every veteran who came through these doors believing they mattered." He paused. No one moved. "But today, I saw something different. I saw people who still care, people who remember what dignity looks like. And that means more to me than any courtroom ruling." Clay lowered his head. "I don't know what to say." Elias turned to him. "You don't have to say anything, but you do have a choice." Clay looked up. "What kind of bank do you want this to be, Clay? One built on a lie, or one rebuilt on the truth?" For the first time in his life, Clay Vance didn't have a press release or legal script to follow, just a mirror. He nodded, solemn. "I'll call the board, first thing tomorrow. We'll start the process. We'll make it right. Then came the most unexpected voice of all. Mrs. Delaney, the elderly customer who had quietly watched from her chair since the beginning, stood slowly. 40 years ago, she said, her voice a little shaky, I walked into this bank pregnant, broke, and alone. Your grandfather? He barely glanced at me. But you, Mr. Monroe, you walked me to the counter. You told the teller to waive the fees. You said everyone deserves a little grace. She walked up, opened her worn handbag, took out a small envelope, yellowed, crinkled, and placed it on top of the bills. It's the receipt from that day, she said. I've kept it all this time, not because of the money, but because of the way you made me feel. Elias's lips trembled. You made me feel human. Silence. Then slowly, Elias reached out, took the envelope in both hands, and pressed it gently to his chest. At that moment you could feel it, the weight of the years lifting. The bank wasn't just a building anymore. It was a living witness to the power of truth, to the cost of silence, to the resilience of memory, and to the quiet redemption of a man who never stopped believing. The crowd had thinned, but the weight of what had happened lingered in the air. You could feel it in the way people moved, slower, more thoughtful. It wasn't just another Tuesday at Heritage Trust anymore. Something sacred had happened here. Elias Monroe stood in the lobby like a man who had finally found a piece of himself, buried for decades, now laid bare in front of those who once dismissed him. Clay Vance, still gripping the stack of documents Elias had handed him, looked hollowed out, but not broken. Something in his posture had shifted, less rigid, more grounded. The arrogance was gone. In its place, accountability. Mr. Monroe, Clay began, his voice low but steady, on behalf of the Vance family and this institution, I want to say what should have been said a long time ago. He stepped forward, looked Elias directly in the eye. I'm sorry. The room froze again, not because the words were shocking, but because they were true. For once, no legal jargon, no deflection. Just a grandson standing in the aftermath of a legacy built on deceit. Elias didn't speak right away. His eyes softened, searching the young man's face, not for weakness but for sincerity. I appreciate that, he said quietly. But the apology isn't just for me, Clay nodded. I know. He turned to the rest of the room, staff, customers, even the cleaning crew who had quietly paused near the back. My grandfather made this bank powerful, but Mr. Monroe gave it its soul. He raised the documents high, as if presenting evidence to a courtroom. These papers, proof of ownership, forged wills, witness affidavits, will be submitted to the board of directors and, if necessary, the courts. But I will not wait for legal proceedings to do what's right. He looked back at Elias. We will restore your name as co-founder. We will open an investigation into the transfer of assets after your disappearance, and we will make a public statement correcting the historical record. Elias breathed deeply. You could see the tightness in his chest finally ease. But more than that, Clay continued, we're going to create something permanent. He turned to Daniel Hart, the branch manager. I want a plaque installed on the front steps, not just with Elias Monroe's name, but with the full story, the betrayal, the redemption, the truth. Daniel nodded. I'll contact the engraver today. Clay looked around again, then pointed to the far wall, where a modern abstract painting hung near the teller windows. That wall used to hold his portrait, didn't it? Marjorie Powell nodded. Taken down in '84, replaced with that. The painting was expensive, cold, and forgettable. Take it down, Clay said, put the portrait back. Luis, the security guard, stepped forward. I think I know where the original is. We had some old frames stored in the basement archive. I'll check tonight. You do that, Clay said, then added quietly, we owe him that much. A beat. Then Elias spoke again. I didn't come here for a plaque or even the apology. I came here because I couldn't let the lie stand. Not anymore. And now, I can go knowing my name, my truth, won't die with me. Clay swallowed hard. I heard what you said about your diagnosis. I'm sorry. Elias gave a soft, tired smile. I'm not. That answer surprised everyone. Elias turned slightly, facing the late afternoon light pouring through the tall lobby windows. If I hadn't gotten sick, I might have never come back. I might have carried the truth to my grave, still angry, still bitter. But that's not peace. Peace is when you can tell your story out loud and see people finally listen. He turned to Clay. And peace is when the people who benefit from the lie are brave enough to break it themselves. Clay bowed his head. He looked shaken, but not ashamed. Changed. Elias's voice grew softer, more intimate now. I forgive your grandfather. Doesn't mean I forget. Doesn't mean it was right. But holding on to hate? It wears a man down, like rust, quiet, constant, and I've carried it long enough. Clay was silent, then he did something no one expected. He walked to Elias and hugged him. Not a political gesture. Not a camera-ready moment. A real embrace. One thing that I said, I see you. I know what we took, and I want to help make it whole again. Elias, though stiff at first, returned the hug slowly, then firmly. A murmur rippled through the lobby. Elisa wiped her eyes. Louise stood a little straighter. This wasn't just about Elias Monroe anymore. This was about all the people like him, the ones buried under lies, overlooked by history, erased by convenience, and how sometimes, just sometimes, the truth could find its way back. Clay pulled back. There's one more thing, he said. I want to create a new initiative in your name, a loan fund for community-based businesses, small farms, minority entrepreneurs, just like what you originally envisioned. Elias raised an eyebrow. You serious? Clay nodded. Call it the Monroe Fund. Elias chuckled. Sounds expensive. Not as expensive as the truth, ignored. The room exhaled as one, like the building itself had finally released a breath it had held for 40 years. Outside, the sky was starting to shift. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the front windows, but instead of feeling heavy, the air inside felt lighter. Like something had been lifted from the bones of the place. Daniel Hart cleared his throat. Would you like to say a few words, Mr. Monroe, to the staff? Elias thought for a moment. Then walked to the center of the lobby, facing the team. I was gone a long time, he began, and when I came back, I didn't know what I'd find. I was ready to fight, to yell, to burn it all down if I had to. He paused. But I didn't need to, because you all, he looked at Elisa, Marjorie, Luis, Thomas, even Clay. You listened. You saw past the coat, the bag, the beard. You saw the man underneath. Another pause. And that gives me hope. Not just for this bank, but for all the people out there still waiting to be believed. He nodded once more. Keep this place honest. Keep it human. And maybe, just maybe, we'll all sleep a little better at night. No applause. No standing ovation. Just the quiet stillness of respect. And somehow, that was louder than anything. 2 weeks later, under the soft light of a spring morning, a crowd gathered outside Heritage Trust Bank. The building looked the same, columns, granite steps, polished windows, but something was undeniably different. Near the front entrance, right where hundreds of customers walked every day without looking, now stood a brand new bronze plaque. Its surface gleamed in the sunlight. The inscription was simple: Heritage Trust Bank, founded in 1954 by Elias Monroe and Edgar Vance. May truth always outlive silence. Below it, a portrait had been restored, Elias's portrait. The one that had hung decades earlier before someone decided his legacy no longer belonged here. Now it returned, framed, proud, and positioned at eye level so that no one would forget again. Inside, the lobby was quiet, not because it was empty, but because people moved with reverence, as if they knew they were walking through more than a financial institution now. It was something else. It was memory, made physical. It was redemption, carved in stone. And it was the funeral day. The church wasn't grand, Elias wouldn't have wanted that, but it was full, standing room only. Bank employees, customers, farmers, and community leaders, people who had been touched by the man some years ago, some just weeks ago. At the front, an open casket rested beneath a wooden cross. Inside lay Elias Monroe, dressed not in a suit, but in the very coat he had worn that day. He walked into the bank with a dusty canvas bag, cleaned, pressed, but untouched. Clay Vance sat in the front pew, eyes lowered, hands clasped in silence. Next to him was Marjorie Powell, clutching a folded tissue. Behind them, Elisa, Luis, Thomas Kent, and dozens more. The eulogy was delivered by Clay. He walked to the podium, paper in hand, but didn't read from it. Instead, he folded the paper and tucked it into his coat. I didn't know Elias for long, he began, but in that short time, he taught me more about honor, justice, and humility than any business school or boardroom ever could. He looked toward the casket. He didn't come back to punish us. He came back to remind us who we were supposed to be. He glanced out at the crowd. Elias Monroe taught us that the measure of a man isn't what he builds, but what he leaves behind. He left behind the truth and the courage to tell it. His voice cracked slightly. This bank, this town, this legacy, it belongs to him again, and it always will. Clay stepped down in silence. No applause, just a stillness heavy with meaning. At the end of the ceremony, people were invited to walk past the casket. Some laid flowers, some left handwritten notes. But many, without planning or coordination, reached into their pockets and gently placed old dollar bills beside Elias's hands. Faded bills, frayed edges, some decades old. One by one they stacked up. Not money, memory, gratitude, respect. Later that evening, the bank closed early. Inside the boardroom, Clay Vance signed the final document approving the creation of the Monroe Fund, a $10 million loan initiative designed to help small business owners, farmers, single mothers, and first-time homebuyers across the region. Below the signature line, the motto read, "Built on truth. Invested in people." Weeks passed. Seasons changed. But the story of Elias Monroe did not fade. Local news ran a special report. National outlets picked it up. Headlines read, "Bank founder returns after 40 years to reclaim his name, then changes everything." Documentaries followed. Community organizations began sharing Elias's story in classrooms, leadership seminars, and diversity trainings. And yet, despite the growing attention, the people closest to Elias knew he wouldn't have cared for any of the spotlight. He didn't want applause. He wanted something quieter, something deeper. Every morning, before the bank opened, Elisa took a moment to touch the edge of Elias's portrait. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Luis, the security guard, began greeting every customer with a new line. "Welcome to Heritage Trust, we're built on a promise." Marjorie Powell retired that summer, but not before training her replacement to always ask for a customer's name, not their balance. And every Friday afternoon, Clay sat by Elias's old bench outside the bank. Sometimes he just watched people pass. Other times, he handed out leaflets about the Monroe Fund. And occasionally, when no one was looking, he'd rest his hand on the bronze plaque by the door and whisper, "Thank you." Some men chase fortune, others chase fame, but the rarest among us chase the truth. Elias Monroe didn't live to see his name trending in headlines. He didn't want it. He lived to see something better. Justice before goodbye. And now, every time someone walks through the doors of that bank, every time a family gets a loan they never thought possible, they carry a piece of his legacy. Because the truth, no matter how long it sleeps, always wakes up.